Hello students, we're starting today again with the agenda, the Subat, which is students will be able to write explicit functions for arithmetic sequences. The academic word of the day is media. So media uses statistics to inform their followers. And now we're gonna do our warm-up. So if you can take a couple of minutes, pause it, and work on it for a few minutes. So take a minute to pause it and work on it. So, okay, find the pattern. What is the pattern in the first one? If we notice, he goes from -1 to 1. So what do I have to do that? Some people would say add 2, but then he goes from 1 to -1. We don't add 2. Okay? So what we're doing basically is just, and there are different ways to figure it out, but multiply by -1. Some people would say add 2, subtract 2, add 2, subtract 2, add 2, subtract 2. Okay, so both would work. In here, what are we doing each time? We are adding 2. For the next one, if you notice, what we're doing is multiplying by 2. And in here, some people said, oh, for number 4, we add 3, we add 5, we add 7, we add 9, etc. And yes, that's a pattern, but also if you notice, these numbers are perfect squares. So 1 times 1, 2 times 2, 3 times 3, 4 times 4, 5 times 5, and 6 times 6. So it's the number squared. Okay? And in here, again, plus 3, plus 5, plus 7, and so on. So it's probably related to something like this. If you notice, it's going to be the number, the space in which they are. There is space 1, space 2, space 3. We square it, and then we add 3. Okay, so those will be the patterns for this warm-up. Before we start with our goal, which is to write, to write explicit functions for arithmetic sequences, I want to kind of go back to recursive formulas. And you're like, what? What is recursive formulas? If you recall, we had f of 1 is equals to 9, and then we would have a function f of n is equals to f of n minus 1, let's say, plus 5. Okay? To be able to figure out a pattern or find a sequence, we were depending on the previous one. For example, we know that f of 1 is equals to 9. What is f of 2? Well, we would go to our function or recursive formula and say f of 2 is equals to f of 2 minus 1 plus 5. I'm replacing the 2 for the second number in the list, and then replacing it here and replacing it here. So 2 minus 1 is equals to f of 2 minus 1 is 1 plus 5. Now we go and we say this f of 1, we know the value, and it's this value right here. So f of 1 is 9 and we add the 5, which is equals to 14. So now we have f of 2, which is equals to 14, and we put it in here. Then, to be able to find the next one, let's see, we would go back again to our recursive formula, right? So it's now for the f of 3 is equals to what? So f of 3 is equals to f of, the recursive formula says f of n is equals to f of n. We know that n is 3 minus 1 plus 5. So this will be f of 3 minus 1 is 2 plus 5. Now remember that this is not a value. It's f of 2 means go to look for what the value of f of 2 is. So we go back to f of 2 now, which is the previous value, and it's 14 plus 5 is equals to 19. Okay. Now what if I tell you I want to find the value of f of 100? That means that you would have to do f of 4 and go through the similar formula and find the answer. Then f of 5, then f of 6, then f of 7, etc., etc. So you are depending on the previous value to be able to find this sequence, right? So now, today we're gonna use not the recursive formula, but the explicit formula. Okay, and what is that? Okay, so let's say that day 1, you have $1. Okay, day 1, you have $1. Oh, by the way, if you need to copy any of these, just make sure that you pause it and you can go back, etc. You have $1 on day 1. Then day 2, you have that $1 and you start saving $2 additional. Okay, you have that $1 and you start saving another $2. Day 3, you have the $1 that you started with plus the $2 that you saved day 2 and an additional $2. Okay, day 4, you have $1, then the ones for day 2, and then the ones for day 3, and now it's day 4, so you have $2 more. So if we write this as a sequence, we have day 1. Day 1 we have $1. Day 2 we have $3. Day 3 we have $5. So it's just 2 more each day. $2 more each day. What could be the formula in here? Now, some people would say, oh, it's f of n f of n is equals to 2n. And then we go, okay, so if this is my n, the number of days, and this is my money, does that make sense? 2 times the number of days, 2 times 1 is, no, that will be 2, so this doesn't work. Okay? What about f of n is equals to 2n plus 1? just because in here 2 times 1 and 2 times 1 would be 2 plus 1, that doesn't work. Or 2 times 3, that will be 6 plus 1, it doesn't work. Okay, so no. What about f of n is equals to what are we doing in here? I'm going to show you. It's going to be 1. We're adding $2 each day. And we're going to represent that as n minus 1 to represent the days. Why am I subtracting 2? Because if you notice, these $2 that we're adding each day does not apply for day 1. Okay, only for the other days. Okay, now let's see if it works. This is the money that I start with, plus the 2 that I'm adding each day, except the first day I did not add anything. And now let's apply for day 1. Day 1, 1 minus 1 is 0. 0 times 2 is 0. 0 plus 1, $1. Now let's see if it works for the second one. We apply the 2, we replace it in the end. So 2 minus 1 is 1, times 2 is 2, plus the $1 I had is 3. It works. Let's see for the next one. 3 minus 1 is 2. That means that only 2 days we added to those $2. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. That's the $5 I have. Day 4. 4 minus 1 is 3. That means I only put 3 days. Each day $2. 3 times 2 is $6, plus 1 is the $7. Okay, now that means that my n would be, for any n, for like 100, I could just replace 100 in here and figure out how much money I'm going to have on the 100th day. Okay, so it's going to be 1 plus 2 times n minus 1. And that will be my explicit formula, because it gives me the exact value of any one day I want to know. Okay, I don't have to go to the previous day and the previous day, like in the recursive formula. Okay, so take a minute to pause it and analyze it, make sure you understand it, and if you don't, then go back. Okay. Okay, more examples. We want more examples, right? Okay, what if they give me, let me make sure that I'm aligned here. And so, what if they give me a list of numbers? Okay. And I have to find the explicit function or explicit formula. First of all, I have to analyze what is happening in here. What are we doing? From 9 to 6, what did I do? Subtract 3. We are subtracting 3. We're subtracting 3. From 3 to 0, we're subtracting 3. So that's the pattern. Okay, so I'm going to show you to write the formula from a sequence, and we're always going to start the initial point, which is 9. In here, what we're doing is subtracting 3 and times the number of days, except that, remember, we are going to subtract 1, because on the first day we do not subtract anything. It's just what we start with. Okay. Sometimes you're going to see these formulas simplified, okay, which is going to be 9 Negative 3 times n is negative 3n, and negative 3 times negative 1 is positive 3. We can combine this, because these are like terms, and so it's going to be negative 3n plus 12. Okay, so it doesn't matter which one you use or which one, as long as you know that this represents the number of days, and then you just subtract. This is simplified, so it would affect that you're multiplying each day by the negative 3, that maybe it's money that you're spending or donating or something related to negatives. Okay, now let's try another one. They give us another sequence, and so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What is happening in here? We're adding 1, we're adding 1, we're adding 1, we're adding 1. So my explicit formula will be f of n is equals to my initial point, then what I start with, which is 1. I'm adding, so I'm going to put plus, and I'm going to say 1. And I'm going to multiply by the number of days, but again, take away 1 because the first day I didn't have plus 1, right? It's just what I start with. I already have that in here. Okay? Again, you can simplify it, but this is probably how would you look at it. Sometimes they also write it. First of all, they don't put a 1 as a coefficient, so they might write it as n minus 1 and then plus 1. Same thing if you have the 1 in here or at the end, it doesn't matter. Okay? And again, this is the same, except that I'm not writing the 1 because usually when you have a parenthesis times 1, you don't write the 1. Okay, one more example. So if I have 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, what would be the explicit formula? Again, I would like for you to pause it and see if you can figure it out just by following the examples on the top. So it will be f of n is equals to what we start with, which is 6. What is going on? So in here it looks like we're adding 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. So each day I'm adding 2. And again, why do we put n minus 1? Because it represents the number of days minus the first day, because on the first day we're not adding. Not until the second day we're adding those 2. Okay? So that will be the equation or explicit formula. Now sometimes they're going to give you the formula, the explicit formula. Let's say f of n is equals to 3 times n minus 1 plus 2. So this means that I start with 2 and each day I'm going to add 3. Okay, so I'm going to add 2. That's one way to figure it out. Otherwise, you can just make a table and say on day 1, I replace 1 minus 1 is 0. 0 times 3 is 0 plus 2 is 2. Then for day 2, 2 minus 1 is 1 times 3 is 3 plus 2 is 5. Day 3, 3 minus 1 is 2. 2 times 3 is 6 plus 2 is 8. You notice how it's increasing by adding 3? This is what we're doing here, adding 3. We start with 2, but then we add 3. Okay? 4 minus 1 is 3. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 plus 2 is 11. Again, we added 3. If you see that pattern, or if you understand that this is what you're adding each day, all you have to do is add 3. So for day 5, that will be 14, right? Now, what if the formula is already simplified? And here is already simplified. We already subtracted the 1, distributive property, etc. So day 1, 2 times 1 is 2, plus 5 is 7. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 5 is 9. And again, if you notice that the pattern is there, each day you're just adding those 2 that they're telling you. So it's going to be 11, 13, 15, and so on. Okay? For the homework, it's going to be... Okay, it's almost time to start, but for the homework, recall from the agenda that it's going to be 9.1, and hope you can understand the whole concept. Thank you.